The New York Football Radio Network.
All right, we're back, everyone. Antonio Coppola alongside Rob Boncardo on a special edition of the New York Sports Beat. Rob, I mentioned before the break that there are a couple of huge New York football games this weekend, both Giants and Jets. Huge rival division matchups. Jets in Foxborough to take on the Patriots, while the Giants are at home to seek revenge against the Cowboys for that Week 1 loss. Now, being that we are both Jets fans, we gotta start off with the Jets and break down this game, because I don't think that people out there in the NFL world, football fans, experts, analysis, whatever, I don't think that the Jets have been given enough credit for what they've done. They're 4-1 on this season. They've matched their win total from last year, where the season was down the tubes after week 3 or 4. Rex Ryan had no control of the team. Throughout all the changes that have been made, whether it's the roster, the secondary, wide receiver position, the biggest has to be the coaching. What has Todd Bowles done in your eyes to really turn this thing around?
Oh, he's just a disciplined coach. We see every time with his press conference. Do you see him bugging out? No. He's calm all the time, and that's what the Jets need. They don't need somebody who's all rowdy, who's going, oh, we're going to win the Super Bowl this year. I mean, yes, I love Rex Ryan to death.
Me too.
And the one thing I always loved about Rex, I love that confidence, because you know what? You kind of need a guy like that who wants to go out there. We're winning it. You need that energy. I'm going out. I'm going to win the Super Bowl. But Todd Bowles, I just feel he's more relaxed. He talks to his guys. He has them disciplined. They're not picking up penalty yards. And plus, all the offense, what they picked up in the offseason, you get Brandon Marshall, and now you pair him up with Eric Decker and Chris Ivory, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Jets have phenomenal offense. But, I mean, this game, Antonio, is a David versus Goliath matchup. Basically, the number one offense, New England Patriots, averaging 36 points a game, versus probably the number one defense, New York Jets. And we always know what goes down when it's Jets-Patriots. A lot of hard hits. The rushing game's always working. Rob Gronkowski's going to be going crazy out there. And you know what? I have the Jets winning in this one. I think there's going to be a big game for them. It's going to be a tough challenge. But after what the Jets did in their offseason, building their secondary, getting Revis back, getting Cromartie back, getting Buster Screen, they have the defense to beat the New England Patriots and shut down Tom Brady.
Right. Everything you said is spot on, Rob. Todd Bowles, I think you saw it in the past couple of weeks, exactly what he's meant to this team. They go into London, they beat the Dolphins, but they had 14 penalties. Coming off the bye week, sloppy first half, they end up blowing out the Redskins in the second half, and the entire game, one penalty, Rob, one penalty. Mm-hmm. It is so night and day from last year, where you got guys running around doing whatever they want. Yes, maybe they were playing with heart and enthusiasm. They were kind of feeding off of Rex Ryan. But the Jets that you see this year are the Jets that the Jet fans want to see. Discipline, accountability, and just playing hard and playing for each other, not to a point where you're out of control. Because I think before, yeah, they had a great locker room at some points. Maybe not so much when Santonio Holmes was around. We all know about that. But there's a sense of just chaos when the Jets were on the field sometimes when Rex Ryan was at the helm. Now it's all controlled chaos, and I think that's the biggest thing the Jets have going for them, is that they are under new leadership and they're being controlled. Now, getting into the matchup, you mentioned the number one offense against the number one defense. Yes, it's gonna be a ridiculous battle. It's gonna be, I think, I think it's gonna be a higher scoring game than people think. Mm-hmm. Now, the Jets, they coming into this game number one in total defense. They are second in pass defense, Rob. They're only giving up 185 passing yards a game, and when you look at the Pats offense, best in the league. Mm-hmm. Tom Brady's passing for 325 yards a game. That's almost double what the Jets are allowing. Mm-hmm. Where do you see this matchup? Do you think that the Patriots are going to have to rely a little bit more on that run game? Because you mentioned Rob Gronkowski, they're probably their biggest weapon aside from Julian Edelman. Rob Gronkowski is going to have to find, like, Todd Bowles is going to have to find a way to scheme against it, because I think, but you stick Buster Screen, you mentioned him, he's been outstanding, you're going to stick him on Edelman. Mm-hmm. Where do you see the Pats scheming in terms of trying to exploit the Jets defense with Gronk?
It's still going to be passing. It won't be the running game. I mean, we look back earlier in the year when they played the Eagles. Obviously, Darren Sproles had a big game against the Jets D. But otherwise, the Jets are a team that will shut you down on the line. So running game won't be established in this one for the Patriots. It's just going to be Tom Brady being able to read a defense. So what makes him and a quarterback like Peyton Manning the same are that both of them are great at reading defenses. They know when the blitz is coming, and that's one thing that might be the advantage for the Patriots in this one, is Tom Brady's reading of the Jets defense.
Another I think X factor we have to talk about. Not so much an X factor now because he's kind of taken on the league by storm, and that's our guy Chris Ivory. Chris Ivory, as said by Brandon Marshall, is the best running back in the NFL right now. Whether or not you agree with that, Rob and I are here to tell you that this guy is phenomenal, Rob. We've been watching him for a couple years now. Probably the only thing that John Idzik did right was trading that pick for Chris Ivory and getting him from the New Orleans Saints a couple of years ago. He is now a New York Jet. Rob, this guy is outstanding. There's nothing more that can be said. His running style, what he means to this team, and what he means to this offense.
Oh, he's so important. We look at it with the Jets. You look over history. We had Curtis Martin. Then we had a little bit of a time period where we really didn't have a running back. We get Thomas Jones. We had Chris Johnson last year who didn't live up to any expectations.
Not at all.
But Chris Ivory, just the last couple years, he's kind of matured, and he's kind of coming out this year. We're gonna see this guy maybe put up maybe 1,200 to 1,400 rushing yards this season. He's just been killing it, getting down the field. First half, you know what he establishes? He hits the defensive line, makes some moves, makes them attack him. Second half just exploits that defense and gets downfield. Picks up 20-yard rushes, 10 to 15-yard rushes. Just a great running back, and he's gonna be a big part for this game versus the New England Patriots.
Absolutely. And you mentioned what he's meant and his projection for this year. Rob, the guy's third in the league in rushing yards with 460 yards, and he's only played in 4 games. Mm-hmm. He's averaging over 115 yards a game. The guy's just been phenomenal. You can't say enough. And what he does for this offense in terms of opening up the passing, because last year Eric Decker was the number 1. He had a decent year. I don't think he lived up to that contract that he signed. But when you bring in Brandon Marshall, an all-pro wide receiver, we saw it last week against Washington when he made the shoestring catch, shoved 2 defenders out of the way, and took the ball to the house. You really see what this offense can be when you have a balance between passing and rushing. And I think the Jets, this is probably the best offense I've ever seen in my lifetime with the Jets. Obviously, years ago, the Mark Sanchez, Braylon Edwards, you mentioned Thomas Jones, LaDainian Tomlinson. This is better, Rob. It's much better.
Almost definitely. Marshall is the best Jets wide receiver since Keyshawn Johnson.
Oh, no doubt.
And the thing about Marshall that I really love this season is the maturity really happened for him. You know what? We look at Chicago with what was going on, because Marshall has that problem where he's always fighting with people. Jay Cutler had a terrible year with Chicago, and Marshall really gave it to him last year. Really, you would see the arguments going on between the two. Comes to the Jets, and you know what? He's just living up, being positive. He's getting downfield, trucking defenders, not even scoring touchdowns. He trucks defenders, and then he scores. And it just opens the blocks to the Jets, as you said before. You allow Eric Decker more space. You're allowing Chris Ivory more space. But one thing Todd Bowles did say, besides these 3 guys, he wants the Jets to be more open on the offense, get more guys involved. Because eventually, defenses are going to start figuring out that's just these 3 guys running the offense. And once they get figured out, you're going to have to start relying, whether it's your tight end, your other wide receiver in Curley, whether it's Cumberland, you're going to have to start building around these other guys as well.
Now, Rob, I want to talk about Jeremy Curley for a second, because he's kind of become an afterthought, and he was one of my favorite Jets last year. In a season where Eric Decker was on and off the shelf with an injury, mm-hmm. Jeremy Curley was our number 1 receiver, and he's been here, for a few years now. Obviously, he got that contract extension last year. He's getting paid about $4.5 million a year, which I thought he deserved. But this year, Rob, I think he's caught I think he's caught 3 passes this year. He's so far buried on that depth chart. I think he's the 4th or 5th receiver now with the additions of Devin Smith, Quincy Enunwa, Chris Owusu. What has happened to Curley, and what do you see his future being with the Jets? Because I can't see them paying him to be in the role that he's in right now next year.
Well, obviously, we see with the acquisition of Brandon Marshall, we all knew it was the end for Curley, that he was going to drop to probably the third wide receiver. You're not going to get the playing time over Decker and Marshall. Hands down, that's just how it is. Those are guys that are producing. But for him to keep falling, that's been a distraction to him. I see it that way. Decker and Marshall were a big distraction. And you know what? How you turn out in practice, if you don't play up to expectations, you're going to lose your spot. And that's why he's just dropping down. I mean, it's sad to see. He's obviously not going to be a Jet soon. He'll be gone out of this offense pretty soon.
Right.
So it's a shame because of what he's done over the last couple years.
Right.
But Curley dug his own hole, his own grave, and kicked himself out of New York.
He was a third down machine. He was a safety blanket for both Sanchez and Geno in recent years. You mentioned him getting buried down the depth chart. I think it's got to be a combination of two things. One, Curley's play himself, his play in practice, like you mentioned. And I also think that, bringing in Chan Gailey, a guy with a new scheme, likes to spread things out, likes those big, tall targets. And, Marshall, Decker, even Anun was a big guy. Owusu's more of a speedster. But just seeing the guy going out there only to return punts, and then you just see the look on his face, like he's got to walk off the field every time. He's so used to, calling for that fair catch or making that punt return and staying on the field, and he's just not getting the opportunity to do that. It really pains me to see. I just wanted to bring that up because he was one of my favorite Jets. But going back to this matchup, Rob, the Patriots are vulnerable, and I think it's got to be in the secondary. With the loss of Darrelle Revis.
Yeah, everybody, you know what? I'm sorry to interrupt. But
no, go ahead.
Going into last season, everybody's saying with the Patriots, oh, look at the team they have behind them. Their defense is so good. Why was the Patriots' defense so good last year? Because Darrelle Revis is a total game changer. Hands down, Darrelle Revis is the greatest defensive player over the last couple years. You cannot say that anybody else is better than him. The guy can stop any wide receiver out there. He picks off players all the time, picks off the quarterbacks. And you know what? That's going to be the killer versus the Patriots. But the Jets are going to have to take advantage of their secondary. The Patriots do not have a secondary whatsoever. Obviously, losing both of their cornerbacks last year, losing Browner as well as a killer. So, I mean, the Jets are really going to have to exploit that problem for them.
There's no doubt. And you mentioned Revis, Rob. When we were able to finally realize that he was coming back to New York, I don't think I'm speaking for both of us here. We were so ecstatic, you couldn't believe it. You never when you saw Revis traded by John Idzik, you never thought he was going to come back, especially when he ended up in the hands of the New England Patriots, ends up winning a Super Bowl, kind of like a worst nightmare situation. Like if you would have told me 3 years ago that Darrelle Revis won't be a Jet and he's going to win a Super Bowl with the Patriots, I would have probably jumped off a bridge. But he's back, albeit $70 million. Rob, it's so proven to be worth it. It's not even funny. The guy's got 3 interceptions, 3 fumble recoveries. He is responsible for 6 turnovers himself in 5 games. The guy is, like you said, he's an absolute game changer. He made this whole defense better. He's covered up, I think, some of the deficiencies of Antonio Cromartie because he's not played that well. When we saw Marcus Williams step in, I thought Marcus Williams, who has 2 interceptions on the year, by the way, I think when he steps in at that number 2 corner once in a while, he looks good. But Darrelle Revis, he makes Buster Screen better. He makes Calvin Pryor better. I said Cromartie. He makes the new safety Gilchrist better. He just makes everyone better.
Yeah, he most definitely does, especially prior to the season last year where he struggled, but now he's back into his safety role. But with this Jets defense, it's just a defense of first-round picks. I believe it's 9 first-round picks out there. And you get Sheldon Richardson back, too. He was suspended the first 4 games of the season, which is even more killer for them. But Darrelle Revis has truly helped change these guys around, has made them play better, has been a true leader. We saw what Ray Lewis used to be to the Baltimore Ravens. That is what Darrelle Revis is to the New York Jets defense.
Right, absolutely. And you mentioned the first-round picks. Not only Revis, not only Calvin Pryor, but you look in the middle. David Harris. You look at the D-line, it's absolutely stacked, Rob, with Wilkerson, Richardson, and now Leonard Williams. I think that's going to be the key to this game, going back to the matchup with the Patriots this weekend. This game is for first place. The Jets are 4-1, the Pats are 5-0. If the Jets win this game, they're in first place in the AFC East through 7 weeks of the season, and that's a pretty big feat for Todd Bowles and his squad, who's coming in here kind of retooling everything. But when you look at that, that's the key to this game, is can that front line of the Jets get the pressure on Tom Brady? Because we haven't really seen him rushed up the middle so far this year. And I think that's his biggest weakness. When you rush Brady up the middle, move him off his spot, I think that's when you start to see him throw erratically and kind of rush his throws.
And once you get to him, once he gets hit, that throws Brady's game off completely. I've seen it time in and time out with Rex Ryan. When Rex Ryan used to blitz him, he hit Tom Brady a couple times. Tom Brady hates getting hit. That's why you always see him run to the sidelines when he has defenders coming towards him. Once you hit him, his game is completely off, and that's when you take advantage.
All right, Rob, before we cut this segment off, you got to give me a prediction. What do you think's going to, not only the score, but just how do you think this game's going to play out? What's the Jets' strategy going to be? Are they going to go in there and let Fitzpatrick throw the ball around, or you think they're going to have to rely on Ivory?
They're going to have to rely a lot on Ivory at first, but I think they're going to get a lot of passes downfield. The unfortunate thing is we are on the road for this one. Are you part of that bet with Ian Sachs? With
Yeah.
I kind of joined into that too now.
Did you? What was your agreement? Before I tell you mine, which I think we made like week one.
I might have to wear a Patriots jersey on Tuesday or a shirt on my radio show, and I'm going to complain the whole time for when I do Lights Out Sports. I mean, I have the Jets winning. I have a 24-17 win. 24-17.
Okay.
I think we're going to win. But I really just don't want to wear blue, red, and white. Those Patriots colors.
The bet I made with the one and only Sack Daddy Ian Sachs was that if the Patriots won, I would wear a Patriots jersey of his choosing, and if the Jets win, this is mind you, for an entire day, not just a radio show, he would have to wear my Muhammad Wilkerson jersey for the day, walk around campus in front of everyone, representing that green and white. But like you said, I agree with you. I think the Jets are going to win this game. I think it's going to be a little more high scoring than people may think. The Jets are going to have to turn the ball over. Obviously, they've really been able to, last year was just ridiculous. I think we had to wait 6 games for the Jets to get an interception last year. It was impossible to watch. I think they're going to have to turn the ball over a couple times. Tom Brady's going to have to throw a pick. I see the Jets winning. I think it's going to be like a 28-23 kind of game. It's going to be the Patriots are going to get. I think they're going to get the last possession, and the Jets defense is going to come up with a big stop. And I think that's where we're going to see the game go. But the Jets are going to prevail. I see them scoring close to 30 points on that New England defense. New England, let's face it, Rob, New England's not going to go 16-0. They're going to have to come up with a loss at some point. And when you look at their schedule, yeah, they got some tough games, but some of those tough games are against the Jets, and I think this is one of them that they drop.
Oh, I think so, too. I just have my Jets. I never give up on my Jets. I'm one of those on Sunday. No matter what, no matter how we look, I will always pick my New York Jets, and that's just how it's going to be.
All right, well, we may sound like Jets homers, but we're telling it like it is. The Jets are going to win this Sunday. You've heard it here first. Rob Boncardo, Antonio Coppola. We'll be back next time to break down all of your New York sports. Have a good day, everyone.